I was really doing a lot of work with women in the late 80s and the early 90s. I'm 62, by the way, just to give you a sense of my lifespan. And in the 80s and 90s, I did workshops for women, et cetera. And then I started to be really curious about the intersection of women's conditioning and men's conditioning. And so I really apprenticed myself to some men who were doing a lot of men's work, the men of the Spruce Tree Lodge in Boulder, and my various sweeties who were often involved in men's work, trying to understand what men are about and what the conditioning that you guys receive is about. And started doing a workshop at men's conferences, often the only woman presenting, called Women as Allies to Men, where I would share the information that I gleaned to the women. And what inevitably happened was that the men attended my presentations. I was expecting that the women would come and the men would be like, whatever, women as allies to men, that's for the women. But the men would come and feel really touched and moved by my ability to put men's conditioning into words to validate their experience, especially because often if they tried to put it into words, it's so often sensitive, the kind of space between women and men, that it'd be tough to get many words out before being reacted to because of how we women are conditioned and how we've been kind of mistaught about men and how men tick by the feminist movement. So I saw the tremendous value just of being able to voice some of these things. And in this work that I've been doing since 2002, between the work I was doing with women and the work that I was doing with the men's gatherings, I had never held space for a group of men at that point. Just for I was a counselor for a short amount of time. I worked in a men who batter group for a little while, but I had never on my own held space for a group of men. And I had a big spiritual shift in 2002 after a dark night of the soul, and began this spiritual work, which was obviously open to everyone. And then I started to feel the power of the space that I could hold with my understanding of men and my own work on my internalized women's conditioning, so that I didn't do all the kind of stuff that we do because we're ignorant of its impact on you all. So I learned a lot about that, and I moved through some of my own internalized women's conditioning that, makes us turn into victims and makes it difficult to listen to you guys and makes us reactive and makes us need your approval and all that stuff. And I had my first men's gathering, and I don't know if it was 2016 or 17, and it was such a sweet event. I think about 40 men came out in Berkeley, and I could just really feel how we were turning the dovetailing conditioning on its head just by having that event where men were coming in their humility to hear a woman speak about men and men's conditioning. It's just like, what? And we cooked up the idea of doing a retreat for men. That was in 2017, the first one. So we've done one every year except for the year of COVID. We tried, but it was just too much. So every year, 2017, I think. So does that make this year's retreat the 7th, I think? And we are going a week now, and we go in the woods, and this year's will be in New Mexico. And my deep sense is that men's community, men feeling trust, men feeling a bond, men feeling safe, is such a vital ground to the work of men spilling their hearts open. And why would a woman hold that space when there's a ton of awesome men's work going on? And I have a number of friends who are men who have been leaders in that kind of work. And recently, 3 of them, before the last men's retreat, said they wanted to do a blessing of my work. And it's very sweet, because to be a woman holding space for men, you can imagine I get crap from both sides. and where was I going with that? There are things about, how do I say this? When a group has experienced a certain kind of conditioning, whether it's people of color, whether it's gay and lesbians, whether it's men, women, young people, elders, Jews, etc. There are patterns in the culture and then patterns in our psyches that hold us within a certain little prison of behavior based on how we're treated as a whole. And these are obviously generalizations, and we're all unique and different. But I found that as a woman, I could see the results of men's conditioning because I was outside of it in a way that men inside of it couldn't see, and vice versa. I've had some tremendously gifted and sensitive men hold space for me because they were outside of my conditioning. I bring a certain number of qualities to this work, but so huge, I feel like I'm orchestrating a kind of a authentic space within which really men can find and fall in love with each other and learn to trust, and then the power of that. So that's just a tiny bit about it.